Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. We are here today about to check out 12 things not to do in Paris. Now this girl, she's French, so she's gonna tell you as a French person what not to do while you're in Paris. So let's see, man. Let's see what's going on. Like always, man, if you're new to the channel, let me know where you're chiming in from. I love to respond to you guys. Probably gonna respond to you guys like the first hour. I'm responding to every comment. After that, man, I gotta, do other things. But let's go check out this video. What's her name? Lucille. Shout out Lucille. Let's go.
And today I'm gonna tell you 12 things you should never do in Paris. The first one is to grab food near a major monument. If you've just visited the Eiffel Tower or the Louvre, do not eat in the neighborhood. The restaurants there tend to be terrible, with awful food, terrible service, and all that for a very...
What the hell was that? Pizza?
The restaurants there tend to be terrible, with awful...
What the helly? Man, if you eat this, bro, somebody serve you this, they need to be arrested immediately.
Food, terrible service, and all that for a very, very expensive price. All of these places have something in common, is that they cater to tourists who will only go there once and then never come again. So they do not care about you or giving
Makes
you.
sense.
What you should do instead is walk for 15 minutes away from the major monument and try to find a place that has a lot of locals in it. So personally, when I see a restaurant that has only signs in English, I tend to be a bit suspicious because it's a sign that locals don't actually go to this place. And this also works when you're doing your research for restaurants. Try to use the English version of French-speaking websites like the Fooding. With this, you'll actually find places locals actually go to, and you'll increase your chances of eating delicious French food. When in doubt, just grab a bite at a bakery, but don't go to any bakery. You see, in France, we take bakeries very, very seriously. There's even laws regulating them. And you're only allowed to call yourself a boulangerie, which is the French word for bakery, if and only if you fully make your bread from scratch. The places that don't make their own bread are just called pain, which means bread. So going to a boulangerie will guarantee you
called what?
And a good stand.
I don't know what she just said. The people that don't make their bread are called what?
Bakery, if and only if you fully make your bread from scratch. The places that don't make their own bread are just called pain, which means bread. So going to a boulangerie will guarantee you good bread and a good sandwich, which in Paris tends to cost between 4 and 6 euros. But when it comes to croissants and pastries, getting a good one actually gets a tiny bit more complicated unless you know what I'm about to tell you. Not all bakeries make their croissants and pastries. Sometimes it's just frozen food, and we do not want that.
And buy that frozen stuff and sell it. There's a lot of restaurants.
By just putting a little...
A lot of restaurants do that. Buy frozen food and then, warm it up and sell it to you here in France. So if you can get the authentic, freshly made, you'll see the quality is much better. But for a tourist, a person that's coming to visit from another country, like let's just say Americans coming to visit, they couldn't tell the difference. They probably think they're eating the real deal. There's some stuff that's been frozen and man.
Store next to the name of the pastry you're buying. But you should learn how to recognize a good pastry. If the bakery you're in has a very wide offering of pastries that all look the same, they're all beautiful and exactly even, then it's definitely suspicious and you should run away. So most people who live in Paris, me included, have their own bakery that's close to their home they usually go to for bread and pastries. And one sure way to find that for you is to look for long lines of locals in the morning and at lunchtime. And you should also stay in the right local areas to make sure you're close to the good food. And one big mistake I see people making is either staying in the super touristy center or super far away. So for all the reasons I told you before, we don't want to be staying only in the tourist centers next to the major monuments. If you're doing that, I feel you really miss out on what makes Paris so unique, which is the local life, all the people who live here, and of course the delicious food. Also, if you stay in local areas, you're just gonna discover random local hidden gems that are super cool and not mentioned in any blog or guide or YouTube. Everyone has their favorite.
So don't be shy. Go ahead and ask a local, somebody that's from there. Hey, where's a good place to eat here? That's how you're gonna get find the real deal,
local areas, but a few of my personal favorites are the 20th and the 17th for local life and the neighborhood feeling. I also like the 11th and the part of the 10th that's next to the Canal Saint-Martin. They're pretty cool for going out. They have a lot of bars and restaurants, and I used to live there back in the day. I sometimes see people staying super far away, like really far away. It's not always cheaper, and I personally believe you should try getting a smaller place in a local area instead. Every person who lives in the Paris area will tell you that taking the commuter train called RER every single day is not fun. And you'll also miss out on my favorite thing to do in Paris, which is walking around. If you're visiting Paris and you're not walking around endlessly to discover the city, you are missing out. It's really super enjoyable to walk in Paris because the architecture is so beautiful and everything is so dense, so there's a lot to see. And also for my American friends who love driving in cars, just know that it's the worst way to move around because Paris is such a big city and there's a lot of traffic jams, so it's actually way faster to take the metro. And I'd personally only take a taxi or Uber if I'm coming from the airport and I have a lot of luggage, because a lot of metro stations don't have elevators and I don't want to be carrying my luggage up the stairs. Actually, none of the people I know who live in Paris own a car, and I don't see why you should need one. Another thing you should avoid doing in Paris is not speaking a word of French. And if you have to only know one word, let it be bonjour. It's super important to say hello to people when you start speaking to them. More on that in the next section. You can get away with just saying bonjour and then speaking English. A lot of people in Paris speak English. If people don't speak English, I recommend just being patient with them and using Google Translate. But if you really want to have a good experience, you should absolutely learn a bit of French beforehand. And for that, I recommend that you try today's sponsor, Lingoda. Lingoda is a language learning school with live small group online classes, which is the best way to learn a language and make you start speaking French in no time. My American boyfriend Bobby is learning French at the moment, and I can tell you that it has really made his life in Paris better. And mine too, since he doesn't need my help translating stuff in his everyday life. At the moment, Lingoda has a super cool language learning sprint challenge, where if you take 30 lessons in 60 days, you'll get 50% cashback or 30 credits. You can even do a super sprint and take 60 lessons in 60 days for 50% cashback or 60 credits. It is such a good way to learn French fast before a trip, or just get into the habit of learning a language. Also, there's so many different classes to choose from, so you can really pick one that seems exciting and works perfectly with your schedule. So go ahead and join the Lingoda language sprint to level up your language skills. Click my link in the description below to save 30% or use my code Lucille2024 for an additional 20 euros off. So I was telling you that saying bonjour to people, or even hello if you don't remember it, is super important. Different countries have different ways to be polite, and in France, basic politeness like saying hello and thank you is super important. If you're, for example, asking for directions, starting your sentence with a bonjour will re-guarantee you a way friendlier response than just asking for it directly. Another way you can accidentally be rude is by being super loud in places where you should be quiet, like in the train, for example. I know, because I tend to speak very loud myself. People will actually shush you if you're being too loud. And also, if you're very loud and don't speak French, people might actually think you're yelling at them. This makes me think of a very awkward interaction I had at the bakery. So, my local baker doesn't speak English, obviously. And there was this American lady who was asking for something in English. And instead of just understanding that my baker didn't speak English, she just repeated it louder and louder and louder until I had to intervene because my baker was really scared that she was getting yelled at and not understanding what was going on. And when I intervened, I noticed that the American lady was actually just asking for coffee, and she didn't understand why she got this tiny European coffee. And that's a very common mistake people tend to make. So when you ask for coffee in France, you'll get the tiny European coffee, you'll get the espresso. If you're like me and you prefer your coffee to come in a big cup like this one, you should be going to an actual coffee shop where you can have filtered coffee or American style coffee. And another thing you should not do in Paris, and a sure way to have Parisians hate you, is not being aware of your surroundings. So Paris is really dense and there's not a lot of personal space. So if you're stopped in the middle of the road and you're, let's say, blocking the sidewalk or the metro, people will get frustrated at you. Paris is a city where people actually live in, so we have to go to work, we have to take the metro, we have to be on time for job interviews and that type of stuff. And it tends to be sometimes a bit frustrating when you live in a touristy area and people are just blocking the way. So remember, Paris is a big city, and even though it's really safe, being aware of your surroundings and avoid having your bags open and your valuables out is most of the time the only thing you need to prevent you from getting robbed. But overall, you shouldn't worry too much when you're traveling to Paris. And you should absolutely not overpack your schedule.
You gotta watch out no matter where you go. You gotta check. You have to check out wherever you go. Paris especially, they always got those pickpocketers around. They got them whip girls that be coming around trying to have you sign a petition, talk about this and that. those are pickpocketers. And on the metro, there's a lot of pickpocketers. So be careful.
Recommend you just embrace the lifestyle, just enjoy the city, walk around, spend hours eating with the people you love, sit at a cafe and people watch, or picnic in a park. Your trip to Paris should not be an endless to-do list of things to see, because it's really a city you experience instead of just ticking the boxes. And by the way, if you're in a rush, do not go to a sit-down restaurant, especially if it's outside of normal eating hours. French service is known to be slow because we want it to be slow. We want to actually enjoy being in the restaurant and we don't want to be rushed. Even midday work lunches will take around 45 minutes to an hour if you're at a sit-down restaurant. Also, don't go to a restaurant right before closing time because they usually tend to stop serving people around 30 minutes before closing time. Closing time is the time they actually close the gates. Overall, I found that people who tend to be very disappointed by Paris are people who come with very, very high expectations. And you know, there's so many movies that paint a perfect romantic image of Paris, like Emily in Paris, Amélie, or even my favorite movie about France ever, which is Ratatouille, which is actually about a rat cooking French food. So pretty close to what happened in some Paris restaurants. Paris is a big city with everything that comes with living in a big city, like trash, annoyed people who have to go to work, and a lot of traffic. Also, as I was telling you, it is very touristy. 2 million people live in Paris.
Also, one thing I dislike the most in France is people not cleaning up behind their animals, well, their dogs, basically. The amount of dog that you will see on the sidewalk, not in the grass too. Hey, that's why I don't walk in the grass. In the grass with you, man, bro. I'm like, bro, why people don't clean up behind their dogs? It's nasty. I don't understand this, and that's one thing that I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to do a video on like 5 things that shocked me when I moved to France. For sure. Yeah, I'm gonna do a video for sure because we have to talk about it.
And 44 millions of people visit each year. That's 22 people per Parisian. You know, you wouldn't go to New York and expect to have a chill, relaxing vacation and have the subway smell good and be full of happy people. So it's exactly the same thing in Paris. And if you don't enjoy the down-to-earth realities of being in a big city, that's totally okay. France has so many other cool places to visit, and maybe you should try going to a smaller French city or going to the countryside, which is a lot of fun. Which leads me to my next point. France is not Paris. It's actually a super diverse place. There's so much to see. You've probably already heard of Provence and Côte d'Azur, but there's so much more to explore. A few of my underrated favorites are Brittany, the Pyrenees Mountains, the Basque Country, and obviously Toulouse, where I grew up. And also, you don't even need to be in Europe to travel to France. Check out this map of overseas France. Like, this is France, and this is also France, and also this is France too. So go check out these places, and I'll see you in the next video.
It's not France, but hold on, like you can't say it's France. It's not like the French country. It's part of France. We know they got islands and stuff, but yeah, there's some beautiful islands that France owns, and you need to go there. I've been to Martinique. I want to go visit more for sure. Well, yeah, she gave some really interesting points, and she's like some of this stuff is logical if you really think about it, but some stuff you just isn't. I don't know, like if you don't really think about it, like if you're a tourist, you wouldn't know. If you think about it, you would, but you wouldn't really know. Like if there's a restaurant near a tourist place, you'd be like, yeah, let's go there. I heard this is pretty good. If you're looking at you know what I'm saying, online and stuff like this, you might see some good reviews. You might not, if you're looking at reviews, but it's better to go away from the touristic places to find food and find things to do for sure. You know, get a real experience of the culture. That's very important. What else? Saying hi, yes, that's very important. Even me. See, I wasn't raised to just go into somewhere and say hi to everybody. Like people I don't know. You know what I mean? Like in America, where they're like, don't talk to strangers. But here, it's very important. If you go into walk into a room, to say hi to everybody. You know, say thank you, merci, bonjour, merci, bonjour, merci. Parfois, j'ai oublié. Sometimes I forget to say thank you. Now I'm better. I'm better with it. I'm very much better. But when I first came to France, you know, so I would. Not that I'm not thankful, but sometimes you know, I would forget. And I know some of my friends, they probably be like, this guy here, man, he never says thank you. I know they do. I need to talk to them about this because I have to set the thing straight. It's not that I'm not thankful, bro. I'm very thankful. But sometimes I used to forget when I first came to France. And I know this. I know them guys are like, this guy is rude. I'm not rude. I love you guys, man. But yeah, that's the video. And yeah, let me know. And I will get into another video. Y'all let me know what y'all want to see. If y'all want more videos about France or whatever the case may be, let me know. I do have a vlog dropping maybe I'm going to drop it this week. I need to edit it. I'll drop it this week. But yeah, see y'all in the next video.